Hello, I'm Helen Thorn, comedian, podcaster and author. Welcome to Weight Loss 360 with Boots Online Doctor. We're here to support you as you make the little changes that can have a big difference. And this week we're talking about the impact of stress on our waistlines and what to do about it. As always, I'm joined by Dr. Sam Willapilli, lifestyle and medicine GP, empowerment coach and author. Hello, Sam.
Hi, Helen.
Welcome back. We are very lucky. We're joined by a special guest today, Dr. Neera Dholakia, who's from the Boots Online Doctor team, who is a GP, and you're also the mental health lead here. So I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
So as we do every week, we want a little bit of an overview, a bit of a drill down into what we're covering for this week's episode. Over to you, Neera.
So today we're going to have a gentle look at stress, mental health, our mood and how that affects our weight. And we're going to think about how our food affects our gut and how that affects our mood and our brain. We're also going to have a look at how stress affects us and particularly how we can respond to stress in a better way. And Sam and I have got some great tips and advice in terms of dealing with stress, both in the short term and the long term. We also want to have a look at what we can do to support ourselves with the people around us and also things that we might do to put obstacles in our way. And all of this to help us to lose the weight and also keep the weight off.
That's so good because I think it's not just physical, is it? It's such an emotional journey that we all go on. And it's that cyclical thing about emotional eating and then feeling bad about ourselves. And then you feel like you can't get out of those habits and cycles. And help is at hand, everyone. So I'm really excited about going into this. And I know from my own experience, my weight loss journey came after the hardest period of my life. I went through a really, really difficult divorce. And in that survival mode, obviously I was filled with cortisol and all that stress. And there was no way I could even think about losing weight. But when I was ready to make that decision, I found weight loss to be less challenging. But I think, when I was in my sort of darkest periods, I think that's when food was just fuel and it was comfort and all those sort of things. But now, having gone through another grief when I lost my mum 6 months ago, I've got these tools now that I know the certain foods that will make me feel better and even, the food and mood diaries and things like that checking in on myself has made a huge difference. So I'm really interested in hearing the advice that you have about that because I know that I've had that sort of, not transformation, but I now feel a little bit more empowered when naturally we all have our ups and downs, but I can get through it more without heaps of sugar and going to the old, they're not enemies, but just the food that's just not going to help.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there actually about thinking about the timing as well of doing some of these things because we've all got lots of obstacles, challenges in our lives, and often when we have big things happen, so relationship breakdown, perhaps parenthood, perhaps changing and moving somewhere different, even, in women's lives all throughout the menstrual cycle, perimenopause, menopause, and on, thinking about all of those things and really picking the right time to make sure that actually we're giving ourselves the best opportunity, because at all of those points our moods can change.
Yeah, you eat food for energy and just to kind of get through the day, and even contemplating, meal plans or any of that sort of stuff feels a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
So Neera, you are the mental health lead at Boots Online Doctor, and I'm really fascinated. And there's been a lot more research and conversations about that link between mood and our gut, and mood and our waistline. Yep. Can you unpack that a bit more for us? Because it's incredibly interesting about how they're all interrelated.
Absolutely. So it's a complex relationship, but they are, your mood and your gut and your brain are intrinsically linked. And what's really important is about thinking about what we're putting in our body, so what food we're actually consuming, because that does affect both our brain but also our mood. And really thinking about the fact that we're actually linked directly through our nervous system from our gut all the way up into our brain. And we often, when we're talking about mood, people often focus on, for example, serotonin, which is one of the brain neurotransmitter chemicals. And people think about increasing serotonin in their brain to improve their mood, particularly, for example, if you're depressed. But actually, 90% of the serotonin is coming from our gut receptors. So if we are nourishing our body through our gut, we're actually increasing our serotonin with the serotonin-rich foods, which then goes up to feed our brains and our mood. And I think, Sam, you've got a lot more to say about the gut
I can see
microbiome.
you're nodding along,
Yes,
Sam.
I'm nodding
yeah.
along because, oh my God, we can talk about the microbiome. So the microbiome is, I think a lot of us will already know this, that the microbiome is this incredible network of trillions of different bacteria that are present in our guts that have performed so many functions for us as, from our immune system, from our processing of getting toxins out of our body, from processing different nutrients and vitamins and hormones in our body, and also this concept, the research is still emerging that the gut is our second brain, and it has all these functions, and all of these bacteria that happily live in our gut just have so many different functions. And one of them is about, one of the functions of the gut is to be the second brain, is to really influence our mood. And so what would be the way to really support our gut and support our mood through our diet and through what we're eating and through what we consume. And, we talk about a lot at Boots Online Doctor about a healthy, diverse, whole food diet, maybe looking at the Mediterranean diet as a really healthy model and approach to the way that you're eating. And we know that these kinds of foods really nourish our mood as well. And we talk a lot about healthy fats as well. And we've even talked about it on one of our shorter episodes about the importance of those healthy fats and how important they are for our brain and our nervous system. So we talk about healthy fats like the ones we find in oily fish like salmon or mackerel, sardines, also in avocado, in nuts, in seeds. Olive oil is a really good source of these foods that really nourish us, as an example. And what Neera just mentioned are those serotonin supporting foods, like tryptophan containing foods, so proteins like chicken and turkey are actually really good. And dark chocolate, absolutely.
Oh, I'm hungry. But the word inflammation now gets thrown around a lot, and I think that's something we don't really know enough about. But we're talking about pain and inflammation and mood and inflammation, and these are like the superfoods that are going to help that as well, aren't they?
Absolutely, because all of these foods are also anti-inflammatory. So these healthy fats are anti-inflammatory. These whole foods are anti-inflammatory. And the thing we really want to reduce in our body is that background inflammation, and that is, we can contribute to increasing those levels of inflammation with chronic stress, that stress that we don't deal with, stress that where we don't have an outlet, we don't have a way to process. Also, if we have a diet that is perhaps higher in those foods that contribute towards that chronic inflammation, things like processed foods. We're talking about maybe ultra processed foods with those fats that have been ultra processed and cause a real rise in background inflammation, because your body doesn't really know how to process them because they're not in their natural state.
And that's going to have a big impact on your waistline, because ultimately this is what our goal, our 360 weight loss sort of approach is that, yes, not all calories are created equal, because you sort of think, oh, well, that's a quick hit, I need the energy, but actually the longer term impact, and you get that quick spike and then it's like, oh God, I still feel awful afterwards.
And I think that's one of the really key things that happens when we're feeling a bit low, particularly, is that we reach for things that are going to give us that lift, that quick fix.
Yeah.
So for me, it's chocolate.
Yeah.
But I know for other people, it could be crisps or any number of things. It goes into our body really quickly, and we get a surge of dopamine. Dopamine is the feel-good chemical.
Yeah.
But the body really likes this, and so eventually you come down essentially from your dopamine hit. And a little while later, you're like, oh, do you know what? think I might have another little bit. And it goes up again. And you end up in these cycles, and particularly if it's a sugary food, you're going to end up in these sugar highs and sugar lows and these crashes. And that kind of goes on and on and on. And when you're not feeling great, you often reach them because they're quick, because they're easy, because it gives you that instant hit. But then your body gets into a bit of a habit of this reward mechanism of the dopamine. And slowly you can see that if you are reaching for those sorts of foods a lot, particularly if you're not feeling great, then that will automatically start the process of putting weight on.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned the sugar cycle, the blood sugar balance, because we talk a lot during these podcasts about that blood sugar balance and how important it is to aim to have a really steady blood sugar over the day, so you're not on this blood sugar roller coaster and sort of surfing these waves of highs and lows, and really noticing how your mood is changing as your sugar peaks and as it really drops. Another thing that we can think about here is cortisol is one of our major stress hormones. So Helen, you mentioned being in fight or flight a lot of the time, and having those really stressful periods where and also we know that we can't avoid stress. Like, life throws stuff at you, and you can't. Often there's nothing you can really do.
No, you can't put it in your calendar. I'm not going to be stressed for the next 6 months because I'm on a weight loss journey. Thank you very much, please.
Absolutely. Yes. So we have to know. So what do we do, right? What do we do if something comes our way? How do we manage those times? I know Neera's got loads of ideas, which we will get into. But I just want to talk about the mechanism behind what happens when we're stressed out for a period of time, which we call chronic stress. So it's this sort of unmanaged stress, and it's in the background, and it's all the time. We're kind of a bit wired in the background because maybe it's work that's stressing us out, maybe a home situation, so many sources. And I mean, pick one. But the result is that you have this elevated background level of cortisol plus other hormones in the body. So having these higher levels of cortisol whizzing around the body when we're stressed out actually means that we have a higher level of background inflammation in the body. And what that means is that we have a higher risk of metabolic conditions. So things like type 2 diabetes, like high blood pressure, like high cholesterol levels, like cerebrovascular disease, which means our risk of stroke and dementia is increased. So, stress, chronic stress, unmanaged stress really does have these big physical implications for us, and we'll notice it with that increased, we call it central obesity, when we put on that weight around our tummies, and we become more of that sort of apple shape. We can really notice it, but we can do something about it. And also, of course, we know that it contributes to mood, this, in multiple ways, but also on that hormonal level. So we really want to take this seriously, this looking at stress and looking at how we relax. How do we release stress? How do we build our resilience? Because it has such an impact on our waistline, and on a weight loss journey, we can't put it in our calendars, as you said. We're gonna have, the chances are this journey is going to last a little bit of time, and in that time something will happen that is going to create stress. So having an awareness, having some tools in your pocket to be able to combat these when stress arises, what do we do? What we recognise the behaviours that we have already. Perhaps it is reaching for the cookie jar or the chocolate bar or the crisps, which generally are ultra processed, contain those ingredients that have their own negative impact on our waistline, on our microbiome, on our mood. So we might get that quick hit, but actually that food is really not giving us what we need in that moment.
So Neera, I wanted to talk a little bit more about mental health. This is your area of expertise, but also the links between mental health and obesity, because I think that's something that affects so many of us, and it's on the increase as well, both mental health issues and obesity.
They are. They're major global problems. So there is I suppose you could call it a bidirectional link between mental health and obesity. So, for example, if you are overweight or obese, you're more likely to be depressed. And equally, if you're depressed, you're more likely to develop obesity. It is quite complex as to how that happens. But some of it's related to cortisol, as Sam was talking about earlier. Some of it's related to the way that we respond to stress. So stress is a natural reaction that we all have. in response to, you know, the demands and pressures of our daily lives. And we do need stress. We need a little bit of stress to kind of get us up and moving, and to you know, even to get excited about things. But when things go on for a long time, particularly, and you've got long-term stresses, different types of stresses, I call mine my stress bucket, where I just pour it all in, and it keeps pouring in, and eventually it overfills. You can end up becoming very overwhelmed. Some people also become anxious or start to feel quite low. And then that in turn means that you're less able to deal with the stress that comes your way. And one of the common things that people do is reach for food as a way to kind of salve that feeling, but also because it's readily available. And in a way, you're thinking to yourself, at least if I feed myself, then I'm doing something to help myself. So you end up in a little bit of a cycle. And so that's where we need to start thinking about the techniques that Sam was alluding to, about how we start to reduce our stress levels, or equally how we actually respond to our stresses in a better way.
I think what you're saying is so true, Neera, because I think sometimes, especially in the later years of our lives, we've got so many different stresses through work, family, all those different impacts, and it can feel impenetrable. It feels like we can't get out of that, and that, you know, the food is medicine. Like we know exactly what we need to make ourselves feel better.
What some people find, though, particularly if they've got mental health issues and are on some types of mental health medications, is that they in themselves can actually cause weight gain. And so you end up perhaps in a situation where you need the medication to keep yourself mentally well, but at the same time it's causing you to gain weight. And then you're trying to lose the weight and you're finding that difficult. And so then you become low in mood again. And if you find that you are struggling with that cycle, or struggling with your weight, and you think it's related to your mental health or perhaps the medication that you're taking, I think the first protocol's got to be your GP to get some advice and some support, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction.
What are some of the first steps, Sam, that we can take to breaking that cycle, or even just, you know, just doing little steps in which we can start to feel better?
Yeah, and I think it can feel overwhelming. So, okay, let's just take a breath. I think finding a bit of time for you and to just really focus on what are the steps that you can take, what's realistic, you know, not overwhelming yourself, not taking 100 steps at once. And we really emphasize that through this whole series, that it really is step by step. You're being kind to yourself every step of the way. You're being patient with yourself. This is not an overnight thing. It can't be, it can't possibly be. This is a transformation that is likely to take a number of months, perhaps even, you know, over a year. It depends where we are on the journey, but give yourself that time. It's a gift to yourself to really give yourself that time. So what I would say the beginning step for what I would suggest to our listeners is to use the Food and Mood Diary, which we have mentioned before in the series, but it's such a useful tool because it shows you fill it in yourself for you. No one else is going to be judging this. It's just for you to look and have insight. Just do it with whatever you're normally consuming over a week, say, and just tracking what you're eating and how you're feeling and what is that link. And if you actually yourself put together, oh my goodness, I actually feel really crummy after I have that. Like I might feel really buzzed to start with, and then an hour later, you know, I feel tired, I want a nap, or I feel like I'm really hungry again, you know, very soon afterwards. You know, you putting together those feelings is really powerful. So then you have that knowledge of like, oh, actually, those gummy sweets, they really send me under, you know. and actually, what am I doing? Because I'm enjoying them for 5 minutes and then I feel horrible for this length of time. So what can I do? What could I have instead of those gummy sweets or whatever your cookies or your chocolate bar or what have you? And it's not that we're ever saying you can never have this again, because it's not about that. It's about really recognizing, and then you know what you're getting into when you do have your treat and enjoy it. But just know that I might feel a bit rubbish after a little while, or I might get that migraine. You know, just so that you're building that awareness of your own body, your own system, and what works for you, and what really you're getting to know your body. You're developing that embodied awareness, knowing of yourself, which is such a powerful thing because we spend so much time in our minds. We all do. And we'll have it linked in the show notes. Just an example. It's just a really simple tool that you can use as a first step. And then really looking at the other resources that we have about feeding your body that food that loves you back, and recognizing what food you really get on with.
By doing the food and mood diary, you work out, actually, I do need a snack at 4 o'clock to stop me from then just picking at things till dinner time, or to make sure that I am in a good mood for when my children come home or my partner comes home or whatever it is, so that you are actually matching what you eat and what you do to how you feel. And you can only really do that by actually writing it down and really looking at it from an honest point of view.
And also, I know I have a chaotic life. I'm a single parent. I go on tour. I'm a comedian. I eat late, and often it's good to do a reflective, food and mood diary, but also plan in advance. No, and I think that comes again from having that self-awareness, going, I know that's going to be a late night, so I'm going to have like egg sandwich or something at 5 o'clock. And also there's a sense of control over that. Because I think even like when you can't control so much about your life, the people around it, the situations you work, when you have a tiny bit of control, that bleeds into other decisions that you make for yourself as well.
It's all about being able to control your responses to things as much as you can.
Yeah.
And one thing in terms of stress is that the way that the body's nervous system works is one bit of it is involved in feeling stress and the other bit is involved in feeling relaxed. And you can't be stressed and relaxed at the same time. So the one thing that you can do, aside from the food and mood diary, is really working on feeling relaxed and building into relaxation into your day. It doesn't have to be, a 45-minute meditation session necessarily. It could just be, a couple of minutes of breathing just to calm the body down. But trying to build that in regularly means that your body has a chance to reset, to relax, and for your mind to refocus again. And often when you do that, some of those thoughts that have been going round and round and round in your head, or some of the perhaps the more negative things or the impulsive thoughts, have a chance to settle down. So being able to work on that relaxation is really important for your general stress levels, but also in the short term as well. If you suddenly start to feel stressed, you've got those techniques there and then to use in the moment. So for example, if you had a really stressful car journey, and you got out and you thought, gosh, I really need something to pick me up, and your mind immediately goes to something that would give you that boost. Actually, if you've got those relaxation responses at your fingertips there, you can just use that, and that will stop you from then going to things that you would naturally always go to, your habits.
And I think it's almost having circuit breakers. So I used to say, if you've got 20 minutes for Instagram, you've got 20 minutes for a walk. And I found that quite helpful. Or if, mobility is an issue, like even just some stretches or just listening to music, a non-screen based activity, some of those sort of mental health things as well. But yeah, food always seems like the answer, I think, because it's so instantly nourishing and comforting, and it can take you to another place. Like it'll take you to your childhood, it'll take you to
there's so
a
much
time
tied up with it, right? Like it's that, but also this whole process of unlearning those habits that we've picked up along the way that have kind of got us to a point where we want to make a change, and that's why we're all here, right? Because we want to make a change. But I think, the things that Neera was sharing there, the sort of maybe a few minutes of meditation, or just putting your feet on the ground and just connecting to where you are right now, sat at your kitchen table, feet on the ground, and just rooting down into the earth just for a few minutes, just as a circuit break, having a glass of water, having a herbal tea, just a bit of comfort. And Neera was talking about relaxation methods. And I just wanted to point out here that sleep is great. Sleep is a whole other thing, and we talk a lot about sleep on this series too. But relaxation is a different activity to sleep. So we just want to make, 'cause it's a conscious thing that you're just bringing down, you're moving the dial from that fight or flight to the rest, digest, heal side of the nervous system to really allow those feelings, whatever difficult feelings might be going on, stressed feelings, sad feelings, angry feelings, just go down a couple of notches and just let the body process what's going on.
Your heart rate comes down.
Yeah.
You get more air into your lungs, feed your brain. So it's always going to be beneficial to do that, isn't it?
You digest your food better.
Yeah. Helen, I wanted to pick up on something you said. You mentioned the word shame. Now that's a huge topic, way bigger than we could do today. But I think it's a really important word, particularly when we're thinking about mental health and about the way that we look at ourselves and the way that we think other people look at us. But one of the things about when we have these thoughts about ourselves, some of the more negative thoughts, is about how we might turn that around and make it into something perhaps a bit more neutral. So one technique that I learnt was, I call it so what if. I don't know if it's got another name or not. But if you're thinking to yourself, what if I go to that restaurant and everybody's looking at me and they're just thinking, God, what is she wearing? And instead turn it around and say, so what if? What's going to happen? Are they going to kick me out of the restaurant? Are they going to tell me to go home? Are they not going to serve me? So what are the actual consequences of having that thought? And you can use that idea to any of these kind of negative or perhaps anxious thoughts that make you feel a little bit bad about yourself.
Yeah, I think that's so true, because I think so many of us don't do things out of shame or ridicule or just feeling like you don't belong, that your body is wrong, that you don't fit in. And I think it feels like it's something you can't conquer, basically. Like, this is the body I've been given. I can't do anything about it. I'm stuck like this forever. And I think, I think I've been like that before, and not wanting to go to clothes shops because I thought they're not going to have clothes that'll fit me. I'll be embarrassed. And I don't, So, and it's that self-worth that is really challenged there, and it's hard to see, and it's hard to see in your friends. I think that's the other thing. If people are listening and you're wanting to support someone else going through this, it's a really big step for people to take, because they just don't feel like they can do it.
Finding the right people
Yes.
for you.
Get your tribe, get your teammates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Finding the people that are going to support you. And if somebody isn't in your corner, think about what you're going to do about it.
Yeah, and I think I always say you have to have like the Spice Girls of friends. You can have different friends for different roles, and some people you don't want to talk about weight loss with because that might be triggering for them. But other friends, like, oh, I know I can go on a walk with that friend. That friend's more of a cup of tea, nourishing, relaxing friend. So I think you don't have to rely on one person for everything, and actually having a supportive partner is really important as well, because that can be part of that sabotage, because you're like, oh, I know food is love, so you're going to cook something rich and delicious, but then having that as well is really important. So ladies, we have come to the part of the podcast where we're getting a question from one of our community members, which is exciting, and this is a two-parter. I love this question. The question is, what about when food itself becomes a stress, right? And basically, what can we do to break this cycle of, between stress and food and weight management?
So, when food itself becomes the stress, you're desperate to want to eat healthily, to make the right choices, to eat at the right times. One of the starting points really is to actually break things down. So anything that becomes overwhelming, break it down into smaller sections. So if it's a case of when you go to the supermarket, for example, so you're feeling stressed because you need to pack everything into your day and go to the supermarket, and you're hungry when you go to the supermarket. So it's about thinking about, can you go at a different time when you're not hungry to avoid you making food choices that you don't want to, or putting things in your trolley that you don't want to. But if we then go back to the idea of stress and actually figuring out what is it about it that's causing you the stress, focusing on that bit, pinpointing that bit, and trying to reduce that stress through some of the techniques Sam and I have already talked about. I'm a really huge advocate for something called progressive muscle relaxation. So it's a really specific type of relaxation that you can learn to do. It's great to do any time of day. Great to do before bed as well, but you can also learn to do it in the moment. So if you start to feel stressed all of a sudden, just do that relaxation movement and immediately your body starts to feel relaxed. And we can point towards some resources for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also we talk so much about stress and being overwhelmed. Start with one thing, you know, really. You don't have to change everything at once. There's some great resources that we'll share in the show notes. We've got the core meal plan. We've got a whole episode on sleep and how beneficial it is for our appetite and all the rest. Why don't you start small steps? So you don't have to overhaul your whole diet. Maybe just look at your breakfast. What are you having in the morning? Can you really nail your breakfast right? Is there some protein there? Could you get some good fats in? Could you get some nuts and seeds into your breakfast? We're giving you loads of information, but really take it slowly. You can always listen back, and pick up another tip and make that little change, but it doesn't all have to be at once. That's really important.
And if you have a day where perhaps you had a lapse in what you were planning to do, which happens to all of us, that's okay. And just being kind to yourself that these things happen, and to pick yourself up where you left off, and that just because it's happened once doesn't mean that you throw everything out, and that you can just carry on. You can just go back to where you were and continue, and your brain pathways will be strengthened.
Yeah, it's like the muscle resilience, isn't it? You're just building it and building it and building it.
You know, we really can come back to it and be like, you know what? I'm doing these things for myself, and we're not stressing ourselves out that we did something wrong, which wasn't wrong. It was just you're enjoying your life.
Exactly. Oh, I feel calm already. Oh, this is lovely. You've both been amazing. So we've covered a lot in this episode, and it's been so meaty and brilliant. But if we had to give the listeners a bit of a takeaway, some top tips, what would they be? I'll start with you, Neera.
Number one, I think really think about what food you're putting into your gut, because that's going to influence your brain and influence your mood, and then that will help in terms of your weight loss journey.
I would say along those same lines of food into the gut, I would say specifically really look at the healthy fats that you've got on your plate. So thinking about olive oil, avocado, nuts, seeds, oily fish, so that is salmon, mackerel, sardines, trying to have these at least 3 times a week. Really supporting your nervous system. Those healthy fats are so important for our nervous system and our mood, and our neurotransmitters, and the sort of the state of health of our nervous system, which includes our mood.
Excellent. Final tip, Neera?
I think find your supporters.
Yeah.
Find the people who are going to be in your corner whatever happens, and also think about you sabotaging yourself as well, and what obstacles you put in your way, or what things you might do to limit what you can do on this journey, because actually you're in control of this. And if you need a few more tips about relaxation or managing your stress, we've got another podcast at Boots Online Doctor called Your Better Mental Wellbeing, which I host with my co-host Soren Truman, and that's got 10-minute episodes which are really easy to actually learn practically how to reduce your stress levels. And so if you find the right people and you believe in yourself, you can absolutely go all the way.
Brilliant. Weight Loss 360 is a fresh air production with Boots Online Doctor. The producer is Ollie Seymour. We've got a bonus episode coming your way in a few days' time where Dr. Sam and I will discuss practicing gratitude and all the ways it can help us. And in next week's full episode, we'll be thinking about the role drinks and staying hydrated can play in your weight loss journey. Joined once more by Dr. David Gwynn. Thanks for listening. We're here to help you make your weight loss healthy and long-lasting. So remember to follow Weight Loss 360 with Boots Online Doctor wherever you listen to your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Make sure you check out Boots Online Doctor Weight Loss Service for a whole load of other amazing advice and free resources, including a weekly live webinar where our experts can answer your questions. The information shared here is evidence-based to help you achieve and maintain weight loss. However, if you have any health concerns or questions, please consult your GP before making any changes to your diet or lifestyle. Remember, every small change is a big step towards a healthier, happier you.